The morning Ethan Brooks decided to leave the heavy steel safe in his mansion wide open, he was certain he would finally uncover the truth. For weeks, expensive items had mysteriously disappeared from his luxurious home in Boston, Massachusetts. The security cameras never caught anything suspicious, and none of his trusted employees admitted knowing what had happened. There was only one person everyone quietly blamed: Grace Carter, the humble maid who had worked in the mansion for barely 3 months. Ethan hated making assumptions, but the whispers had grown louder every day. So he filled the safe with neatly stacked bundles of cash and priceless jewelry, left the door unlocked on purpose, and waited in secret to catch the thief. What happened next was something no amount of wealth could have prepared him for. Before we continue, if you believe kindness deserves a second chance and that appearances can be deceiving, please like this video, share it with someone who believes in compassion, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories that restore faith in humanity. Grace Carter was not the kind of person anyone noticed. Every morning before sunrise, she quietly entered the mansion wearing the same neatly pressed gray uniform. She cleaned the marble floors, polished the expensive furniture, watered the flowers, and disappeared into the background before most people even woke up. She never complained, never asked for favors, and rarely spoke unless spoken to. To the other staff members, her silence looked suspicious. To Ethan, it simply looked unusual. Yet after another antique watch disappeared from his bedroom, even he began wondering whether silence was hiding something darker. What no one inside that mansion knew was that Grace's life outside those elegant walls looked nothing like the luxury surrounding her every day. She lived in a tiny apartment with her elderly grandmother, Margaret, who suffered from heart disease and could barely walk. Every paycheck Grace earned disappeared almost immediately into rent, medicine, groceries, and hospital bills. Many nights she skipped dinner so her grandmother could eat. She had learned long ago that dignity often meant suffering quietly instead of asking others for help. That morning, Grace walked toward Ethan's office carrying fresh towels. As she pushed open the door, she immediately noticed the massive safe standing open. Bundles of $100 bills filled the shelves beside sparkling necklaces, gold watches, and diamond bracelets worth more than everything she had ever owned combined. She froze. Her eyes widened, not with greed, but with confusion. Why would someone leave something so valuable completely unprotected? Hidden behind a wall of security monitors in the next room, Ethan watched every movement. His heartbeat quickened. This was the moment he believed would reveal the truth. Grace slowly stepped closer. For several long seconds, she simply stared at the money. Anyone watching without knowing her heart would have believed temptation had won. She reached her hand toward one bundle of cash. Ethan leaned forward. Instead of taking it, Grace carefully picked up the bundle, placed it farther inside the safe where it could not easily fall, arranged the jewelry neatly, gently closed the heavy steel door, and twisted the lock until it clicked shut. Then she searched the office until she found Ethan's assistant. Without hesitation, she explained that the safe had been left open and someone could have stolen everything if she had not noticed it. Ethan remained frozen in front of the monitor. Nothing about that reaction matched the picture he had painted in his mind. Still uncertain, he decided to review footage from earlier weeks again. This time he watched with fresh eyes instead of suspicion. Slowly, painful truths began revealing themselves. Every missing item had disappeared before Grace even entered the house. One employee repeatedly walked through blind spots in the camera system carrying small boxes hidden beneath cleaning supplies. Ethan realized he had ignored obvious evidence simply because everyone had chosen the easiest person to blame. Ashamed, he ordered a full investigation. Within 2 days, the real thief was identified. It was Victor Hayes, a maintenance supervisor who had worked at the mansion for over 8 years. He had stolen valuables little by little, believing no one would ever suspect him. Grace had unknowingly become the perfect scapegoat simply because she was poor, quiet, and new. The discovery filled Ethan with relief, but also with guilt so heavy he could barely sleep. Curious to understand the woman he had nearly destroyed with his assumptions, Ethan quietly asked the house manager about Grace's personal life. What he learned shattered him. He discovered she worked 2 jobs, donated blood for extra money during difficult months, and sometimes walked several miles home because she could not afford bus fare after buying medicine for her grandmother. For the first time in years, Ethan questioned the kind of man success had turned him into. He had built companies worth millions by trusting numbers instead of people. Somewhere along the way he had forgotten that the value of a human heart could never be measured by a bank account. The following weekend Ethan drove to the modest neighborhood where Grace lived. Rain drizzled softly over cracked sidewalks and aging apartment buildings. He watched from his car as Grace slowly helped her grandmother climb a narrow staircase, carrying grocery bags in one hand while supporting the older woman with the other. She looked exhausted, yet she smiled gently every time her grandmother looked at her. There was no audience, no reward, no recognition, only love. That simple moment broke something inside Ethan. The following Monday, he invited Grace into his office. She entered nervously, worried she had somehow made a mistake. Ethan looked at the woman he had secretly tested and silently judged. For several moments, he couldn't find the courage to speak. Finally, he admitted everything. He confessed that he had deliberately left the safe open because he believed she might be stealing. He explained how ashamed he felt after discovering the truth and apologized with complete sincerity. Grace listened quietly. She did not become angry. She did not demand justice. She simply lowered her eyes and admitted that being suspected because of poverty was nothing new. She had spent much of her life proving she was honest before people believed she deserved respect. Those words hurt Ethan more than any accusation ever could. Determined to make things right, Ethan did far more than apologize. He increased Grace's salary, gave her full health insurance, arranged medical treatment for Margaret through one of Boston's finest hospitals, and created a scholarship fund in Grace's name for hardworking domestic workers who dreamed of building better lives. But the greatest gift he offered was something money could never buy: respect. From that day forward, Grace was introduced not as the maid, but as one of the most trusted members of the Brooks household. Her honesty became an example for every employee. The mansion that had once been filled with suspicion slowly became a place built on trust. Months later, Margaret recovered enough to walk through a nearby park with Grace every Sunday. Their laughter echoed beneath golden autumn trees. Watching them from a distance one afternoon, Ethan realized that the richest investment he had ever made had not been in stocks, buildings, or businesses. It had been in choosing humility over pride. Before we reach the ending, tell us in the comments. If you had found that safe wide open, what would you have done? We'd genuinely love to read your thoughts. Years later, Ethan often shared Grace's story during charity events, not to praise himself, but to remind others how easily prejudice disguises itself as common sense. He would always end with the same lesson: the poorest person in the room may possess the richest character, and the greatest treasure hidden inside any home is not the money locked inside a safe, but the integrity living inside an honest heart. Grace never became famous. Newspapers never wrote about her. Yet every life touched by the scholarship she inspired carried forward her quiet legacy of honesty, sacrifice, and kindness. And every time Ethan walked past that old steel safe, he no longer remembered the trap he had planned. He remembered the woman whose honesty unlocked something far more valuable than money. It unlocked his heart. If this story touched your heart and reminded you never to judge someone by their appearance or financial situation, please like this video, share it with your loved ones, subscribe to the channel, and leave a heartfelt comment. Your support helps us continue sharing stories that inspire kindness, hope, and compassion around the world.